This computer. There we go. Hi, everybody. Brian Pate from the Brian Pate Seminars and Pate Realty Group. This is, it's not really a podcast. It's just kind of we'll call it a fireside chat since it's freezing cold outside here in North Carolina. I think our high today is like 38 degrees, and that's Fahrenheit, not Celsius, for those of you watching from across the pond. So, want to introduce you to my buddy Matt Szalecki. We have talked for months and we had originally talked back in December of 2024. Hard to believe it was that long ago, and had a great conversation. And for the next 12 months, we said, hey, we need to do that again. And so today we do that again. So Matt, welcome. Hold on. There's the applause. And do we need some theme music?
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
There you go. We'll just put you in the wrestling ring. You know what I'm saying? So, Matt, for those that have not watched our previous conversations, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and about your family building company.
Yep. So, Matt Szalecki, I'm a home builder by trade. My dad, wife, and I have a construction company called Family Building Co. We generally build, maybe we'll talk about affordable housing, but we build attainable homes meant for first-time buyers or for landlords looking to house hack or own rental properties. Our average sales price in the Triangle is about 270 grand, which is about half the average new build price in our market.
Yep.
We focus on the small markets surrounding instead of the city centers.
Perfect. So Matt and I met, I guess it was a while ago now, when we were both working at Keller Williams in Raleigh, and we figured out real quickly that we thought differently than a lot of the other people in the building, and kind of connected on that line, and so we've been friends ever since, and it's been a lot of fun getting to know Matt and his family and watching their business grow. So it's been nice to see your success. So I'm going to move my fidget thing out of the way so it's not clicking in the background. So Matt, so tell us where you're building right now, what you're seeing. Tell us what your product looks like. Give us some square footage, bedrooms, finishes. Give us some data on what you're doing.
So my average home is probably 12 or 1400 square feet. We've got my favorite plan is called the 1215, creatively named because it's 1215 square feet.
There you go.
My second favorite plan is called the 1198, if you can guess how big that one is.
Hold on a minute. Let me think. 1,200 square feet.
Yep. And my third favorite plan is called the 1407.
There you go. Got it.
So we do a lot of small ranches, and they end up 250, 275, depending on what location we build them in. Sometimes in a smaller place like Dunn, it might even be like 225, 235.
Right.
And we do our spec level to suit either a present or former renter, someone who hasn't had to take care of a home before. So first-time buyers have been renters, for however many number of years or maybe their whole lives, and never had to take care of a property before. So we tried to give them something that will take care of itself for the first 5 or 8 years while they're figuring that out. So we do mono slab foundations because they don't get humidity issues in the crawl space, and they don't get bugs under the house or small animals. We do vinyl siding. It just needs to be hosed off to be kept clean. You don't have to paint it every couple of years. We do LVP flooring at a pretty thick grade at resisting children and dogs and that sort of thing. Granite counters because they resist burning and melting when people forget and stick hot pots down on them. Fiberglass in the showers because the tile will get moldy if you don't clean it. So everything we do is just meant to be low maintenance and easy to take care of. So it's a landlord's dream, but it's also fantastic for somebody just moving into their first home and just knowing it's going to be durable and well built.
Absolutely. So, and it's kind of unusual because if you look at the average size of a home now, pre-COVID, if we go back before 2020, the average size of a home in the Triangle market, at least, was around 24 to 2,500 square feet. We've seen that dip back to about 2,200 now. And I've often said that that's probably because of new construction wanting to, having to raise their dollar per square footage price without raising that payment price for a potential buyer. Are you seeing buyers shop on price, or are they shopping on that monthly payment in the price range that you're delivering in?
Um, it's probably one in the same. And maybe I don't have the right sample size to tell you the answer to that because all of my homes are in the same general price range. So,
Right.
I don't have $400,000 homes and $200,000 homes to tell you why one buyer picked one versus the other. I will tell you, unlike the national builders have to hold their price. And so they're giving away incentives and they're doing rate buy downs has been their big thing. So they're offering their neighborhoods at 4.99 or 3.99. Um, our homes have sold better by offering, closing cost incentives like a use how you choose,
Right.
or just having the correct price on the home. Whereas the large tract builders are holding the number high and giving away huge amounts of incentives, and they're selling on monthly payment. Like, yeah, our home's 50 grand more, but at the 3.99 interest rate, it's actually less per month than
Right.
the home over there.
The epitome of the marry the house, date the rate concept, because a lot of people don't realize that often that's an adjustable rate that's being offered up front. So you do have to be very careful. I've seen a couple of builders in our area, up in Franklin County and northeastern Wake County, and they're doing these 3.99%. And in the little bitty print that you can hardly find, it says 3-1 ARM, which means it's going to be that same rate for 3 years, and then it starts bumping at a point a year, and by year 5 you're up at 6% again. And of course the builders, as you said, the national builders are having to buy down. The good news for them is with rates dropping recently, their buy downs are at least a little bit cheaper. But it's interesting. You've got a few of them that are starting to go to that 4.99 30 year, and they can get that buy down because they're doing it in bulk. And again, it's mostly the national builders that are doing that, and they've got to do that to keep inventory churning and burning. So how many, just out of curiosity, how many houses do you anticipate building in 2026?
Probably in the neighborhood of 100 to 120.
Okay, so you're up a little bit from where we
Yeah.
were a couple years ago. That's good. That's good.
Yep.
So what are you seeing? What are you seeing in the buyer market? What are the weird things that the buyers are asking for? What are they doing that's unusual other than bringing their father to the inspection to blow the whole thing up?
Yep. Do love that one. Honestly, we haven't had any real out of the ordinary requests. We had one in Roxborough a couple weeks ago where the buyers asked us to put in a fence, so they used their builder incentive for a fence and for a driveway extension, so they could get more parking spaces. Um, if I think about it, we probably had some kind of goofy ones over the years, but uh, right now, I haven't even detected people doing a whole lot to the homes after they're moving in. Like it's just kind of a tight economic environment, so they're trying to get in. We've been offering all appliances, fridge, washer, dryer, and blinds to make it like move-in ready. So, it's all about like, after I make my down payment, how much money am I going to have left?
Yep, got it, got it. Now, are you seeing so when you're building and like this 1198 plan and the
Yeah.
1217, I think you said, if I remember correctly, are those single story or are they two-story homes?
Mostly single story. I've got an 1192 that's two-story, basically 600 feet down. It's open living space, and 600 feet up, 3 beds and 2 baths.
Right. Okay.
Um, but and that's what you have to do in Durham. We could talk about Durham a little bit.
Okay.
Um, you've got to you have to keep a small footprint, and you get to 1,200 square feet, so you end up doing a 6 and 6.
Right. The Durham market's very interesting. You've got brand new homes, then you've got 50-year-old brick ranches that need to be completely restored. So you can buy them, you got to get something that's probably got an ARV, excuse me, for those of you that aren't following along, after repair value or after renovation value of about 500,000, but they're the wholesalers trying to buy those in the 275 to 350 range, and the sellers just aren't budging on that at this point. So you got a better chance if you're going to occupy the home and pay 400 for it, spend $100,000 on it while you're living in it, even though it doesn't have to be perfect for people to live in, but that new home gives people the opportunity to do that very thing if that's not something that they like. And of course, in the older plans, you also don't have those really pretty wide open spaces with the
Yep.
kitchen and living room wide open. So
They're boxy. Yep.
it seems to be more of a question of buying a lifestyle these days over buying a specific house. It's not just a place people sleep anymore. They're going to entertain more. They're still going to DoorDash 3 blocks away for 5 tacos from Taco Bell or something for dinner, and spend the money for that. But they're spending their time at home, and if they have kids, they're gone on the weekends because they're doing swim meets or soccer practice or whatever the kids are involved in, whatever it may be. And because of the Triangle being such a popular area for recreation, we're still seeing that influx of people. They just, we're talking about 70 people a day moving to Wake County, another 42 people a day moving to Durham County. So it's just insane to see the number of people still come in this direction. And I'm assuming that's driving your business, especially with the outlying areas.
Yeah. Yeah. And we basically thrive on urban sprawl, right? Like nobody, it's going to sound controversial. I don't mean it that way, but like no one moves to Roxborough or Dunn on purpose. They,
Right.
they move there because they have a $240,000 budget and that's where they can be. I got to be within 30 minutes of RTP. Roxborough is, and it has my price point.
Yep.
No one is saying I am just in love. I'm just smitten with this town and
Right.
I'm dying to live in Roxborough. It's usually price. And pre-COVID, a lot of those towns were like beyond the edges of the triangle. They weren't really part of this market, and the quick jumps in price push people to look further and further. I grew up in Maryland. It didn't matter if it was 3 or 30 miles away. Everything was 45 minutes away. So
Mhm.
the distance is kind of a non-factor to me. But I've noticed that it takes people a longer time to wrap their heads around travel distance here.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and if you look back historically, we're sitting here talking about the S line train system in Wake County right now, from going from downtown Raleigh to Wake Forest. And in 1992, let me take you back in time, back when you were just a young chap, and I
I was
was
4. Yeah.
I was still partying in all the local nightclubs, but we'll leave that story for another day. But there was a bond on the ballot in both Wake and Durham counties, and it was there in order to build the base of what was ultimately supposed to be light rail in the local area. It was going to be based at RDU Airport. There was going to be a spur that went directly to downtown Durham, right around where the baseball park and the Durham Performing Arts Center is, and then again downtown Raleigh, where Union Station is right now, where they've just completed a multi-million-dollar project down there with that. And the project cost was a whopping $133 million. Today, that same project's probably a billion, probably $1.5 billion, because of all the environmental stuff. It just goes to show you the people from up north that are used to having public transportation like subways and trains and the bus rapid transit and things like that. We're just finally getting on those.
Yeah.
Raleigh's developing Newbern Avenue and Capitol Boulevard with that bus rapid transit in mind right now, but they're still having trouble getting people to use it. And unfortunately, what they did many years ago is they said, we're going to develop around people in cars. And when you develop around people in cars, guess what you get? You get people in cars. And that's why everybody complains about traffic in Raleigh. And Durham's basically the same. I mean, Durham and Raleigh are interchangeable at this point with schools and everything. So I think it's kind of one and the same. And it's kind of interesting. The cities have been married for years, but we're finally admitting to each other that we need each other, because it's much different economy. It's a much more regional economy around here locally. And of course, you get on the internet and it's much more global than it's ever been before. So where's your next project that you got coming out of the ground? What's your where have you got some cleared land that you're getting ready to work on?
All over the place. So we are pouring foundations today and tomorrow on 10 townhomes in Four Oaks,
Okay.
right near downtown. Those will be probably 235, 245, something like that.
Okay.
2 little 5 packs. I closed this morning, or maybe this afternoon, on a 16 townhome project in Graham.
Okay.
We are currently about halfway through our site work on a 68 townhome project in Smithfield, and also about halfway through development on a six duplex project in Dunn.
Oh, interesting. Why the duplex? Where did that idea come from?
That came from a property owner. So their family has owned some land there for some time, and they wanted to turn it into cash flowing rentals. Uh, and to go townhomes was going to open a huge can of worms, and duplexes, it was pretty easy to rezone to what would allow those to be there.
So you're basically
Go with
doing
that.
BTR for a private buyer?
That's right. Yep.
Wow, what a great idea. I hadn't even thought about that. So there you
Yeah.
go, folks. You want your next $1 million idea? BTR with some duplexes on 7 or 8 acres of land, and you got all you can handle there. So what are some of the trends that you're seeing from your end? I talk all the time about what trends I see on the YouTube channel and the TikTok and Instagram. What are you seeing? I love hearing what other people's thoughts are.
So on the finishing side, I run a local mastermind of a bunch of builders, and we get together and just talk shop and swap war stories and ideas and all that. A lot of people are looking to either go to the bottom or the top of the market. The middle of the market's a scary place to be right now. You know, you're and for the triangle, for people who aren't here, the middle of the market's probably 500 to a million. Uh, and those are the buyers who are, the comfortably middle class, but also uncomfortably middle class, meaning when the interest rate changes, it changes their monthly payment, that changes their life. And so since 2023, that group has been kind of locked up, and they're not sure, like, can I really sell my house that's at a 3% interest rate to buy another one with a 7? Uh, and so that's been a tough price point. There's a lot of competition there. A lot of the bigger builders and the large developments have way too much inventory in that price band. And so all my builder buddies are saying either I want to do entry level homes like you, Matt, and just turn and burn these things and just build a whole bunch of 250Ks. Or I want to go up to the custom buyers and be above 1.2 million, where the buyers have the money. They're not worried about the market or the economy. They're shopping for that house because they can afford it. And if you have the balls to build those homes, there's great profit margins available in them.
Right. Right. Well, and it's interesting, who would have thought 5 years ago when we were sitting in the office, or actually 6 years ago at this point, back in 2019, almost 7, we were talking about, okay, what's the middle of the market? And it was 500 to
Yeah, 4 to
600.
6. Yeah.
Yeah, and all of a sudden here we are 5 years later because of the COVID bump. I still think looking back on it, and hindsight's 2020. I was critical of it when it initially happened. I think we had this very conversation over the phone about the Fed should have never gone to zero on the interest rates, because that's what really kicked in this massive inflation that we're talking about, that unfortunately some people just can't afford to get into the property, and
Yeah.
get into the entry level range. And now entry level is 450, 500 in some parts of the triangle. So what you're building is actually giving people an opportunity to get into some equity, because sitting on the sideline right now, if you're renting, you are paying somebody's mortgage. It's just not yours. And
That's
I
right.
think that's what a lot of people don't realize. The interest rate on rent is 100%, because you're making absolutely nothing off of it. And we've done hundreds of studies that people that own their home for 5 years versus people that rent, and it's 125 to 150% difference in their net worth over the first 5 years. And the younger people that are 25 to 30 years old that have been able to buy in the last 36 months, they're going to be in much better position down the road. And even with the interest rates being 7.25 to 7.75, 2 years ago, you can refinance those now and save $300 or $400 a month on your payment, and lower that outgo. So, speaking of payments, I want to throw this out to you. I'm anxious to hear your thoughts. I just thought of this. Tell me what you think of this floated idea about a 50-year mortgage, and what are
Oh,
your
God.
thoughts on it?
I'm so glad you thought to ask me about that. It is complete bullshit. It does nothing. It does nothing for anybody. So I just did quick math on a 400K home when that was floated out there.
Okay.
The impact from going from 30 to 50 years is like less than $50 a month. It has no tangible impact other than you're in debt longer and you pay more interest over time.
Right.
But when you look at a 30-year mortgage, your payment is so heavy on interest and light on principal that stretching the principal out longer doesn't change a whole lot. It's the interest is the crippling part.
Yep, absolutely. I looked at both sides of it, and I understand why they're trying to do that. I don't think that's exactly the way to go. I know that 10 years ago we talked about a 40-year loan when people thought that prices were out of range back in the mid 2000s, and we looked at the numbers back then, and it was negligible, very similar to what you're talking about. And it's the entry level people that need that, but I think we do set them up for debt in the long term. Even if you think about the fact that people refinance typically within 7 years, if you refinance within 7 years, that still becomes a 37-year loan. And I think that's a lot of money that's being given, especially with the front loaded interest that you were talking about. So, thoughts on the administration's move to curtail corporate buying of properties? You want to get it
Yeah.
without getting into a political discussion,
Yeah.
because depending on who you listen to Logan Matashami from Housing Wire, somebody like that, or Lance Lambert from Resi, and they're on different ends of that spectrum. What are your thoughts?
Uh, I'm hesitant to believe that anything's actually going to happen, because I don't think they can close enough loopholes to prevent Wall Street from buying homes. Let's just say they're like, okay, because they said he wants to prevent uh, large corporate investors from buying single family homes. So what's a large corporate investor? Maybe they say, no corporation can own more than 100 homes. Then, I can call BlackRock and say, all right, I have that great idea, guys. Just start 100 corporations and they can each buy 99 homes and you can still get your 9,990 units that you want. So how do they prevent one person from controlling that much real estate? They just happen to be a manager or a 1% owner, or they have stock. I mean, there've been, real estate funds and on Wall Street for decades and decades. It's not really a new phenomenon, but I think they're going to have a hard time accomplishing any of that. I think that is just a puff piece to change a narrative around affordability without actually creating anything.
Yeah. To quote one of my friends who is still an elected official, which he can have it, I'm glad I'm not anymore, but he said, all good bills begin with definitions. And most of the time you can't get through definitions in committee and agree upon them. So
Yep.
it'll be interesting to see what happens. And of course, this current administration is not afraid of executive orders. We'll see what happens with that as we battle with the Supreme Court looking at some things this week right now, as we do this. The Supreme Court's meeting right now on a couple of different things. So always interesting to see. Thoughts on interest rates, war in the Middle East, Venezuela, anything you want to get into as far as that, what you're thinking we're going to see over the next 6 to 8 months?
Yeah, I guess I got some advice to share in that category. So the prevailing thought when I talk to real estate people is, interest rates are going to come down. I've been hearing that, for about a year and a half now. Like, next quarter is going to be the time that interest rates come down. And I've heard stuff that, the prevailing thought around real estate people is Trump is a real estate guy at heart. He's going to look out for real estate. He wants to make sure that real estate is able to perform and do its thing. I used to be pretty heavy in the prediction business. I had a blog. You probably read it back in 21 and 22 and stuff like that. I was always commenting on the news and what it might mean to the real estate industry. But I'm tired of being wrong, so I'm just not giving a shit about it anymore. My reaction to it is to build a business model that can adapt and thrive in whatever the conditions are, and just roll with it. Because if you start trying to guess, then you're going to think that you're right, and you're going to start trying to time the market, and you're going to get fucked over when you guessed wrong. You say, okay, I'm going to go heavy into this area because interest rates, the deal's tight. It doesn't really make sense, but rates are about to drop and the market's going to pop, and the margin will be there 6 months from now. Then you buy a bad deal that doesn't happen, and everybody's hurt. Your investors are hurt. The market has a bunch of bad comps on it. The neighbors or property values are hurt. Like, so I do every deal I look at. I do the entire deal in 24 hours. Like, what does this look like if I bought it today, if I could build it in 24 hours and I sold it tomorrow? And that's how I look at the numbers. So I don't worry about the, I might, socially or mentally care about the political climate, but business wise, my business does not care.
Well, and for those of you watching that don't know Matt's background, Matt was heavily involved in some expansion for Keller Williams when we were there to get individuals licensed. And I don't even remember the name of the program. You probably do, but and so understanding how real estate agents run their business is very important. And a lot of people they still don't realize as much training as I do, and the artificial intelligence has manifested itself with an opportunity to raise the bar in your business, and a lot of people are using it like a toy, unfortunately. But the basics are still the same. 20% or 80% of what you do, or 20% of what you do creates 80% of your income, and the money is in the mundane. The day-to-day, pick up the phone call, send an email. Who do you know that's thinking about selling? Following up with the leads. I'm blown away. I was watching a podcast recently, and the guy says, the interviewer asked this top agent. He says, "How many of those 150 leads a week that you get do y'all actually follow up with?" And he says, "We probably actually connect with 6% of them." I'm like, man.
Yep.
I realize that's 10 to 15 people a week, but that's a lot of people falling through the cracks simply because the agent doesn't answer their phone, and their outgoing message says, "I'm really sorry, but because of all the spam calls that I get, I don't answer the phone anymore." That's like saying I don't use credit cards anymore because I end up having to pay cash. It doesn't work. It's not logical. And
Hey, Brian, how's your math skills?
uh, I'm scared to answer. I think they're pretty good. Go ahead.
Okay. So 250K home, 2.5% commission. We agree that's 5,000 on average, $5,000 commission.
That one I can do. Yeah.
All right. At 90 homes.
Right. $450,000.
That's what I paid listing agents last year because I don't want to answer the phone.
Yep.
I don't answer the phone enough. And so it cost me $450,000 last year to let other people list and sell my homes. It's also good for business, right?
Sure.
I say, help me find a land opportunity. You'll get the new build listing.
Right.
But think about that. I chose to pay that because it was best for my business and the way I work. And I got young kids. I prefer not to get the calls late at night and all weekend and have to go show the homes and stuff. So I use listing agents. But imagine that any agent who doesn't want to answer the phone is costing themselves $450,000 a year.
That's a big number when you look at it that way. That's amazing. So let me ask you this. Let me turn you to as a seller with those listing agents. What is the most frustrating thing right now with your listing agents? Is normally it's communication. Do you get better communication because of what opportunities you're providing, or what are you seeing as the worst of the list side, and what's the best about the list side?
I'd say the best, and it really is not a particular person or talent, but it's people I work with repeatedly over time, and they kind of learn what I'm looking for. But the best thing is agents who actually proactively make an effort to sell the house as opposed to putting it up available, allowing showings to be booked, and following up asking for feedback after the showing.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually I'll get a call or a text like, "Hey, we have an offer coming in."
Yep.
The agents who are crushing it and who I want to give listings to that I don't even owe a listing to. When I buy a lot out of, I make the deal directly. I buy from a developer or a wholesaler brings it to me and I didn't owe an agent the listing.
Mm-hmm.
I choose who I'm going to give that listing to based on skill, location, whatever. And I give them to the people who, when an agent reaches out with questions, they get on the phone and have a conversation with them, and they tell them how great Family Building Company is and all the features that are in this house and why this location is special. And how great of a process we make it, and the value of a small builder versus buying from a Lennar DR Horton type. And it makes a difference in getting homes sold. I wish I had data on that, like number of phone calls to number of sales or sales prices, but I see it every day make a difference. And so I want a listing agent who is going to call with their phone and their voice and speak to the other side and actually make a sales presentation on what we are and what we do and why. The thing that drives me nuts is just, the feedback collection machine. Showing time is already a service. I don't need to pay 2.5% to an agent to set me up on showing time so I can collect the feedback directly.
Right.
And I could list them in the MLS myself. So, I'm looking for sales and negotiation skills. Those are the most valuable things to me. The other part that drives me nuts sometimes is just the speed factor. My top people, I'm like, hey, got a home, it's ready to hit the market, and I'm the best seller. Anybody wants to list my homes, because I'm like, hey Brian, this home's ready to hit the market. Here's the address, here's my deeds, here's the tax card, here's the plans, here's the survey, here's everything a buyer could ever want to see and know about this home. And it's also going to give you everything you need to know to put this in the MLS. And you should be able to have that in the MLS tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 48 hours if your photographer is busy and it's going to take a day.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had homes take 2.5 weeks to get live.
Right.
From the date I provided everything.
Right.
So there are agents who don't mean to be part-time, but they are part-time because of a lack of urgency in their business, or they have multiple irons in the fire. I used to work with a guy who was a real estate agent and a recruiter and a mortgage broker, and working on getting his insurance license, and
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah, be great at one thing. Just be freaking great at something.
As I was told by a mentor 30 years ago, a guy named Gary Sisson from Chicora Real Estate in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, he says, Brian, if you want to make your business big, you make your focus small. So, Matt, for those that are not familiar with you, as we get to the end here, tell the real estate agents listening how you do your business with real estate agents, with them bringing the land to you and that type of stuff. Walk us through that process.
Yeah. So I tell agents, the average agent, they get a land listing opportunity, from a past client or however. They stumble onto a lot, and most of them just pass it off and refer it to a friend and just do nothing, because it's not $400,000. It's not a big enough commission to be excited about. The willing will take it and put it in the MLS. They'll list it, and they'll do somewhere between a 5 and a 10% listing commission on the lower number lots. And they'll make their couple $100 or $1,000 commission for selling the lot. The great agents bring it to me or other builders and investors like me. And I say, okay, I don't need representation. So you can double end, you can be the listing and the buyer agent on the land. When I go to build, I always work with an investor who provides the land capital in a build. So you can be the investor with me and actually fund my acquisition and get a portion of my profits on the end. Mm-hmm. And then you can list it and have the opportunity to bring a buyer. So you have an opportunity to make 5 different sources of income from that little $30,000 lot listing you didn't really want to take. Double in the buy side, potentially double in the list side, and you can be an investor. So, instead of like, oh, someone's calling me. Instead of saying whoop-de-doo, I got a $300 commission check, you can say, okay, I got a $300 commission check and a shot to make an extra $10,000 or $15,000 as an investor on Matt's lot, and a listing of a $300,000 home, which is going to bring me another 10 grand in commission, and who knows how many buyer opportunities.
Yep. Exactly. Well, Matt, it's always great to talk to you. Nice to catch up with you. And we're not going to wait a year till we do this next time. So we'll get that on the calendar. Matt, give us your contact information, just so we've got it: website, mailing address, or email address, and phone number.
All right. Phone number 919-995-5927. routing number, if anyone wants to send money, 064-008-637. Email is matt@familybuildingco.com. And the website, obviously, familybuildingco.com. We have a bunch of our plans up there. We have pictures of our work. We usually have a decently accurate running tally of our homes that are out there on the market right now. And if you reach out to us through the web or wherever, we have a thing called the list. Every Monday we send out the list because I'm real creative with names. Just is a run through of our upcoming homes that are not yet on the market, kind of a sneak preview. We'll take offers before we've listed. So if you see something that jogs thoughts of a client or a buyer you're working with, you can reach out to us and we can work it before it gets listed. Save everybody a couple of bucks and find a win-win. We also put some of our land opportunities up there and just talk a little bit about what it's like to be a builder in 2026.
Very good. Matt, thanks so much for your time. We'll see you next time.
Adios. Thank you.
All right, bud. Thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.